You guys don't need to worry about me getting revenge from Diddy. I've got 3 moves that make sure he'll never be able to come after me or my family. First, I personally reached out to the victims' legal teams. The real reason he's not getting out is those buried cases behind the scenes. I provided legal funding for 7 victims who had been silent for years and brought in the top criminal attorneys in the country. Second, I bought up every potential post-release business deal he had lined up. I planned this 2 years in advance, so by the time he got sentenced and still had hope of getting out, every partner had already cut ties with him. Third, I don't just have evidence, I've got backups. This is an entire minefield that's been buried for 20 years. I uncovered every secret from the last 30 years. With testimonies from the victims, we interviewed over a dozen people he tricked, threatened, or violated. You think that's harsh? No, he destroyed other people's lives for decades. I'm just making sure he spends a few extra years in prison for it. I'm not afraid of his people, not afraid of his threats. I know he's still in there fantasizing about a comeback, but the truth is, he's never coming.
All right, welcome back. Because the spotlight has once again swung directly onto 50 Cent. And this time, it reaches far beyond the documentary itself. 50 has revealed that his Netflix series focused on Diddy barely scratched the surface. With only 4 episodes, there simply wasn't enough room to include everything his team uncovered. As a result, several heavy and revealing details were left on the cutting room floor, including one key element tied to a deeply personal connection that never made the final cut due to time constraints. What's more surprising is that instead of saving this material for a future season, 50 has hinted that the unreleased content could surface independently on YouTube now that the series has aired. He's explained that even more people have come forward since the release, bringing new information with them. That's led many to ask why he keeps pushing forward so relentlessly. A question recently addressed by comedian TK Kirkland, who shut down the idea that this is about clout or manufactured drama, making it clear there's something far deeper and more personal driving 50's motivation. And whatever it is, it significantly raises the stakes.
Out of all the women in the world that Diddy could have gotten with, he chose 50 Cent's baby mother.
It's a lot of variables to this particular question. Because I talk to a lot of people, older, younger, even my daughter, who's 22, she didn't understand it. So people give their opinion based on what they've experienced and their environment, people they've been around. So to the people that understand boundaries and respect, I always tell men you should never date another man's girl if you're not aware of it. If you know it.
That helps explain why this story keeps escalating. TK made it unmistakably clear that crossing certain lines represents a deep level of disrespect. He stressed that throughout his life, he's deliberately avoided any involvement with someone who was previously connected to a close associate, calling it an unspoken rule you simply don't break. And that's what makes this situation raise even more eyebrows. Diddy, by all accounts, had endless options given his influence, resources, and global reach. From TK's perspective, this wasn't random or careless. It was calculated. And when you view it through the lens of the long-standing tension between Diddy and 50 Cent, it becomes difficult to see it as anything other than intentional. That interpretation adds heavier implications to an already layered and intensifying situation, even as 50 Cent's documentary continues to dominate the conversation and rack up widespread attention and praise.
He went after the baby mother of one of his rivals.
Exactly.
Someone who had been taking shots at him for years.
Absolutely.
On purpose.
And he went after her knowing that they had beef.
Right. And slutted her out.
Slutted out.
Just slutted her out.
Slutted out.
Having a whole basketball team run a train on her.
Totally
and
did. I
just
totally
the whole
agree.
thing, right?
Totally agree.
Right.
But his reputation from when he worked at Uptown, I'll be sure's girlfriend.
Oh, Kim Porter.
Kim Porter.
Right.
That's his reputation.
I'll be sure his baby mother.
Baby mama.
Yeah.
Then Eric Serum, his friend, the one that she had his baby, Mia. So he's had a reputation of going after people.
Tupac's ex-girlfriend. He got a baby with her too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my point that I'm making to the men listening, well, if you don't understand this, then you're just poorly educated and don't really have common sense. It's a no. There's no way I would go after Vlad's ex-girlfriend.
Right.
I'm so loyal that if I met a woman and she said, "Oh yeah, I stay Vlad," I can't f with you, man.
Right.
I wouldn't even put my, excuse my language, because that's how I move. Other people don't move like that, but you see me in Paris, you see me all over the world. Why would the f I want to do that to mess up
Because not everyone sees this as a clean victory. Gene Deal has entered the conversation with pointed criticism, arguing that parts of the project weren't as original as they appeared. He suggested that certain ideas closely resembled material he had previously shared, without proper acknowledgement. According to Gene, those moments weren't the result of fresh investigation, but recycled concepts, raising questions about credit and creative integrity. That criticism sparked a new wave of controversy, briefly pulling attention away from the documentary's momentum and placing a sharper spotlight on how the story was actually constructed behind the scenes. Gene also weighed in on the growing buzz that 50 Cent might release even more unreleased material online in the future. And from his perspective, if additional content does surface, stopping it may be out of anyone's control, because once these stories start moving, they tend to take on a life of their own.
I seen an interview about, he said that he had a lot of footage had to be down, the documentary had to be downsized. You understand? I don't really believe that, because a documentary is a documentary, and they could have had 45 minutes, they could have had an hour, to each one of those. You understand? They left out certain things. He said they even left out the one about Sarah Chapman. You understand? And for whatever reason, he probably left out a lot of other different stars too. Situations that they could have spoke about. You understand? I have a problem with the documentary, and I'm just gonna let you know that the reason I have a problem with the documentary is that they know that they took my idea. You understand? They know that when I came to them, I laid out what they should do and how the documentary should be. You understand? She could say whatever she want to say. I talked to those producers before I even talked to her. They wanted to know what I had, what I was bringing, my pictures, all that stuff like that. And I told them about me, Tim, and Kirk. You understand what I'm saying? And how it would go. They did the same thing. This ain't the first time they stole from me, man. If you look at the Notorious Big, if you watch the Notorious Big, that part about the shoes, I had that in my book. And I was talking to K.O. Copeland. He was one of the writers of that movie. And I told him about when I let Big use my shoes at Soul Train Award. You had this old flunky ass dude, Mike B, get on Angie Martinez's show and talk about, Big, he wore mixed max shoes and he went out there and performed. When you go look at the film, when you go look at Big performing that on that show, ain't nothing mixed match about them shoes. There was $800 Maury's, size 14D. Big wore 14E. E means that his shoes is a little wider than mine. He struggled, but he put them up his on and he went out there and performed. Those was my Gators that he had on. You understand? They did a little skit trying to disrespect me in the movie. You understand? And they said something about,
From Gene's perspective, if there were a real mechanism to silence or suppress the documentary, it would have already been used. And the fact that it hasn't speaks volumes about where influence actually sits right now. He argues that the project's continued availability sends a clear message and raises serious questions about how much control Diddy truly still has, and how much of that power may have already slipped away. Gene emphasizes that if 50 Cent decides to release another documentary on YouTube or anywhere else, stopping it likely wouldn't be possible. In his view, if it could have been shut down, it would have happened by now. He points out that Puff has long-standing industry relationships, including connections at Netflix and ties to major figures like those associated with Flavor Unit and Queen Latifah. Yet even with all that reach, the content remains untouched. And that, he says, tells its own story.
Documentary, and if 50 do another one, And I heard he's gonna put it on YouTube or do whatever he's gonna do. Puff ain't gonna have nothing to do with that. Puff ain't gonna have nothing to do to try to stop that because he can't. Because if he could stop it, it would have been stopped. You know why he can't stop it? Because Puff know people right there at Netflix. Don't think he don't. And I don't know if this guy still worked for them, but he was part of the flavor unit, Shakim. He was part of the flavor unit. He was good friends. He was cool with Puff and them. Flavor unit and them, Queen Latifah and them, they was cool with Puff. If Puff would have sent the cease and desist over there and they could do it and he had the power and they wasn't right, they would have been done it. You see, it's still rolling, right? It's still going on, right? He ain't got that power no more. You understand? Now, could he sue them because they use his likeness or use something and stuff like that? I don't know. I'm not that versed in they using him. You understand? If they can steal your whole damn idea, your whole damn ideal, why can't they steal your whole damn intellectual property?